All right, so drug testing in recovery residences. So in levels 1 through 4, drug testing that is happening in the home is a condition of residency and is not a medical necessity. And as peers, that might not mean a lot to you unless you work with a clinical service program where you're dealing with insurance and chain of custody and things of that. Um, but in order to maintain a drug and alcohol free environment, and in order for you to um, prove compliance with that standard to PSAR, you do need to obviously conduct drug and alcohol screenings and maintain logs of such. Um, the importance of this is it promotes accountability. It fosters accountability and it discourages substance use. It supports follow through and helps individuals follow through on their commitment and remain drug free. And it creates a safer environment for everyone in the recovery residence. And then obviously there's different types of drug tests that are used, from urine tests, whether it be just a point of care cup that has the results on the cup, or if you're collecting in a cup and you're doing dip strips, or you could be doing a combination of both depending on what substances you're testing for. You don't see a lot of hair tests in recovery residences, but we are seeing more of saliva tests happening when it comes to monitoring for medications and also for marijuana, where there are a couple of specific saliva tests now that only test for the last, I believe, 48 hours of marijuana use. So when you're looking at someone that comes in, they're like, oh, that was a month ago, and like you're not really sure when their last a date of use was for THC, saliva tests are really helpful for that in detecting whether it was a recent or a longer usage. And then confirmation testing can monitor levels and be used in false negatives and false positive scenarios. And also residents who dispute test results, this is confirmation of that. And then it can monitor any levels of any medications as well. Frequency of timing. So frequency, it should be happening regularly, randomly, and consistently. Timing, you definitely don't want to say, hey, we drug test every Wednesday, right? You want that to vary and switch it up. You may test half of the house 1 week and the other half of the house the next week. So that does vary. Additional testing may be needed for significant events or return from outing. So it may be your policy that after an overnight stay, after certain events, that the resident will need to test again. So we're talking about procedures for conducting drug tests in recovery residences. These can vary, but we always want to respect privacy and dignity when we're ensuring an accurate sample collection. And we do want to observe them. That is best protocol. If you do not observe them, I'm not saying necessarily to change your protocol, but it is best practice to observe the collection of urine drug screenings, so that someone is not falsifying those, whether it be from spitting in a cup or from producing false urine in the cup, or dipping it in the toilet, or one of the many ways that they can alter the test result and not give you accurate results. You want to stick to chain of custody if you are a level 4 in the medical terminology field, but regardless of level of care, making sure that the integrity of each sample is maintained is important. And if you are documenting results and have to take a picture, depending on what software you're using or what your protocol is, and then training. If you have not been trained by your supervisor on how to take drug tests accurately and observation protocols, then please go ask on how to be trained, because you want to make sure that you are properly trained in handling those things. And then documentation. We talked about this before, but maintaining comprehensive records of each test, including any deviations. And so typically what you want to do on a drug testing log is name of client, name of person who's collecting it, the date, the reason for why we are doing this drug test, whether it just be a random or an overnight or suspicion, and then what the test result is. And we want to record test results, whether they're negative or positive, again, and that's for program compliance and for FASAR and for the higher ups in your organization to look at how often we're doing this and how is it working for us. Addressing challenges and potential pitfalls in drug testing. So obviously, false negatives and positives are going to happen. So we want to make sure that we have a protocol in place for addressing potential errors and understand the causes of false results. I know there's been times where I have been tested for various reasons, and it came back positive when it was 100 substances that I have never taken in my life. I was testing positive for, and it was a result of faulty drug test cups. And so, what is the protocol going to be in those circumstances if they're producing false negatives or positives? If it's negative and someone is clearly under the influence, how are we going to handle that situation? What is going to be the protocol? Whether it's another form of testing or just pouring the cup into another test, and maybe it's just that test. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with false negatives and positives, one cup giving you a false is often the whole batch could give you a false result. And so, what is our steps for dealing with those issues? And also, if a resident wants to dispute the test results, what is going to be our protocol for that? Resistance and compliance. So how are we going to handle resistance to testing with empathy and encourage voluntary participation? And that can start with just simple rules. Like when I ask you to drop, excuse me, you have an hour to drop. After the hour, you're no longer fitting within the protocol, and we're going to treat that as a positive test result if you cannot feed an hour. So having simple rules in place instead of giving residents, 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours to produce a urine, can start with that kind of resistance. And then sitting down with them if they're still resisting and saying, what's going on, man? Do you want to just talk to me and tell me what happened? Let's figure out a plan on how we're going to move forward. And then legal and ethical issues. And so again, ensuring that the training aligns with legal requirements and ethical considerations. And you want to talk to your supervisor, the owner, director, who's ever running the show there as far as your protocols go. And then FASAR, as they review your protocols, will also let you know if everything is legit and ethical as far as it relates to your individual programs. All right, so this was actually in the NARR 3.0 standards. These were new standards that were completely developed. Oftentimes, standards are just reworded or regrouped or emphasized on what we're going through a standards review process. But during the writing of the last standards, we actually incorporated a lot on staff wellness because it is very important, especially in this field, to maintain adequate self-care and staff wellness and to have policies and procedures that support those. And so this is new for all the supervisors and owners and operators on the call. We do require a staff wellness policy and procedure to make sure that you're putting in practices that support your staff and peer leaders in maintaining adequate wellness and self-care. All right, so staff wellness policies and procedures in recovery residences are vital for ensuring the well-being and effectiveness of the staff members. These policies address physical and mental health, creating a supportive environment. What does that mean? So we're going to talk about self-care and burnout prevention. Hey, stop. So 1, recognizing the signs of burnout. So you need to learn how to identify physical, emotional, and mental signs of burnout in yourself. And then setting boundaries. Understand the importance of setting clear boundaries in order to maintain a work-life balance. And especially for you house managers and peer leaders who live in the residence and you have that role and you probably have another job and you're also trying to work your own program of recovery and trying to balance all those things. It's a lot. It is a lot. And burnout is real in this field. And we need to make sure that we are maintaining adequate self-care and wellness. And we're working on our own program of recovery outside of the home in order to make sure that we're okay. Because if we're not okay, we're of no use to anyone around us if we're not okay. Practicing self-compassion. So exploring techniques for self-care and compassion to prevent burnout and maintain resilience. I know it took me, what, 15, 17 years in this space to really understand the importance of self-care and self-compassion. I'm a workaholic, I'm a perfectionist, I'm an adult child. I work a program of ADA, so I have a lot of those character defects as well. And so I will work myself to the bone. If there's a project that needs to be done, I will take care of it. I am also a perfectionist, so giving it to someone else to do is just not an option for me. It becomes really hard. So I had to really learn how to have compassion for myself so that I could have compassion for other people. I can't keep filling everyone else's glass if my glass is half empty or empty, right? I need to make sure that I'm filling myself in order to continue to fill into other people. And seek support. Developing a plan for seeking support from colleagues, mentors, and mental health professionals when you're feeling overwhelmed. Counseling is good all the time. It's always great to have a professional in your space that you can talk to when things are good and bad, just someone to bounce things off of. I have mentors and sponsors and counselors of different backgrounds. I have a whole team of support people to keep me sane and keep Whitney's cup full. And I definitely recommend that you all have a team of support systems in place as well. So when I was going through my recovery coach training, this is when, or for the second time when I was going back through my trainings, this is what really stood out to me. There's a section in the training that says you have an ethical obligation to maintain adequate self-care. And after 20 years in the space, working in the field, that really hit home to me. Like it's an ethical obligation. It's not Whitney being selfish and Whitney needing some downtime and Whitney wanting to go meditate in the corner for an hour and get away from everybody else's problems. It's an ethical obligation. And again, you are of no use to anyone else. You can't fill anyone else's cup if your cup is empty. And so it's not selfish, it's an ethical obligation to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're preserving yourself. So the 7 pillars of self-care, it's our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, our environmental health, our spiritual health, our recreational health, and our social health. Some areas of challenge to be aware of are workaholism, compassion fatigue, burnout and stress, boundaries, people pleasing, perfectionism, and not working a program. And what I mean by that is not working your own program of recovery. Your job as a peer, your job in a recovery residence is not your program of recovery. And if you think it is, you're going to have compassion fatigue and burnout like quicker than most of us. You need to be working your own program of recovery while you're pouring into this program and working as a peer leader and a role model. But this is not your program of recovery. So emphasis, your peer role is not your program of recovery. So this is something I did, and this is kind of a simple version of it, but I said to myself, I had compassion fatigue. I was burnt out, but I still had to work in my role. And so what could I do to really work on myself outside of my ADA program and everything like that? And so I created this table and I broke it down into the 7 pillars of self-care: mental, emotional, physical, environmental, spiritual, recreational, and social. And I said, what are 3 simple things I could do? And not all at once, right? We're not going to get all of this done in one day. But what can I randomly pick from that I could work on when I'm feeling burnt out in a certain area? And so I put 3 things. You could put 3 to 5 things underneath each of your categories here. What could you do to focus and work on your mental health if you're feeling just mentally drained? For me, it's a bubble bath, it's journaling, it's meditating. And then what can you do to work on your emotional state? And for me, it's taking an inventory, looking at how I'm impacting other people's lives and how other people are impacting my lives, and why all that's working the way it is. Checking in with my support system regularly, whether it's text messages, phone calls, tagging each other on Facebook and TikTok and things, and just sharing those, doing those check-ins with my support system, and and snuggling my dogs. I have 3 pit bulls, and nothing makes me happier than when my 120-pound boy thinks that he's 2 pounds and just lays across my stomach while we're watching TV. It just centers me emotionally. Um, Physically, I am not a big physical person. You might be going to the gym, lifting weights, running a triathlon. All that may be what works for you. For me, I like to keep it simple. So like just early when I was feeling the effects of burnout, just taking a shower and washing my hair that day was something I could do for my physical health. I've gotten better at it. So now, like going to get a facial or a massage, practicing some yoga. My father, before he passed, he said, if there's one thing I could teach you in life, it's to keep up with your yoga, because if I put the wrong socks on in the morning and they don't match, those are the socks I'm wearing today, because just that bend is just a physical demand for me. My father was a big guy. Um, Environmental. So, what can you do to clean up your environmental space and make it a more harmonious environment? For me, that's keeping my house clean. Nothing like waking up to a clean house and going to sleep to a clean house. Organizing. It doesn't have to be a mass organization. You could say, I'm going to focus on this junk drawer today. And that's just going to help me clean up my mind. Or idea boards. My boards are virtual. I have lots of virtual idea boards that are just like goals. And it's really on how I'm going to develop my environmental space. It's specifically on that, like a garden, or how I'm going to redo my living room or my kitchen or whatever. Spiritually, I do a Bible study every Saturday. That really works for me. Volunteering. There's no way to get centered spiritually like helping someone else and getting out of yourself, or prayer. Recreationally, I'm not big on going out and doing things these days, but if we're going fishing, I'm going. If we're going taking the ATVs out or side by side, we're going riding, I am going. And I try to make it at least once or twice a month out swimming, which also hits my physical domain as well. And then socially, if I'm feeling down, I call my best friends. Every month I have a family cookout where my whole family gets together, and that really helps me socially, or just doing something with my kids and playing with them. So I challenge you to make a table, make a list, put 3 to 5 things underneath that list, and make sure you're focusing on at least 2 domains daily. Pick 2 things to do daily out of each domain, and so that you're pouring into yourself constantly. Don't try to be a perfectionist and hit every single domain in one day. It's going to be a lot, but try to do something for yourself in at least 2 domains a day. All right, now let's talk about ethics and decision making. Ethics and decision making play a crucial role in the environment of the recovery residence, where peer support staff are instrumental in guiding individuals towards sustained sobriety and wellness. The ethical considerations surrounding confidentiality, respect for autonomy, and empowerment of residents in their decision making are central to the operations within these supportive living environments. As peer staff support the complex dynamics of addiction recovery, you're going to encounter nuances that are ethical dilemmas that require thoughtful decision making. Understanding the principles of ethical conflict and the frameworks for making sound decisions is essential for fostering a safe and supportive community within the residence. Let's talk about different legal ethical considerations. Legal compliance. So house managers and peer leaders need to ensure strict adherence to local, state, and federal laws related to operation of recovery residents. Understanding health and safety regulations and fair housing policies is essential to maintaining a secure and compliant environment for residents. And this is not all on you. This is not your burden, that you need to know every law out there, and you need to have full understanding of the Federal Fair Housing and Americans with Disabilities Act, but it's good for you to have some type of awareness and understanding of these laws and how they work within a recovery residence. Ethical decision making. House managers must demonstrate unwavering ethical standards in their interactions with residents, staff, and the community. Upholding confidentiality, respecting individual rights, and avoiding conflicts of interest are crucial components of ethical decision making. And equity and fairness. Ensuring equitable access to resources and opportunities for all residents is a key responsibility. House managers should strive to create a fair and inclusive environment by addressing any issues of discrimination or unjust treatment. So we want to treat everybody the same. We want to give everybody the same amount of respect. We want to divvy out house rules and consequences the same, not treat anybody with special privileges. And remember, we are the role models. There's been tons of times where I have felt personally challenged in a recovery residence, where it was like, if that would have happened back in my day, this would go a lot differently. But when you take that role as a house manager or a peer leader, you're taking a different role, and you have an ethical obligation to be the bigger person in those scenarios. And so if you need to take a breath, if you need to walk away, if you need to type someone else in because you can't handle it in the appropriate ethical manner, then do so. But don't let conflict get the best of you. So the NARR Code of Ethics. One is assess each potential resident needs and determine whether the level of support available within the residence is appropriate. Provide assistance to the resident for referral or to an outside of the residence. And one thing I heard earlier is discharge, when someone says, F you, I'm out of here, I'm not going to treatment, I'm not doing those things. It's still our ethical obligation to provide that resident with a community resource guide. So whether it's a sheet of paper or it's a packet that they're walking out with, you want to get something in their hands, because likely their decision is going to change once they leave the house and they're no longer in that conflict with you. We want to make sure they have some resources available to them. 2, value diversity and non-discrimination. 3, provide a safe, home-like environment that meets NARR standards. 4, maintain an alcohol and illicit drug-free environment. 5, honor individuals' rights to choose their recovery paths within the perimeters defined by the recovery or the residence organization. So what does that mean? It means we need to pick our path, and we need to pick our priority population and who we serve. If we are a residence that is open to everyone, then we're not serving anyone. We're not helping anyone. If we are a program for male adults, 18 and up, abstinence-based, and that does still include MAT medications, and we're a 12-step program, then someone that is really focused on Celebrate Recovery is probably not a good fit for us. They should be probably referred out to a program that is more faith-based and Celebrate Recovery focused, because they're going to feel isolated. They're going to feel like the odd man out, and they could benefit greater at a different recovery residence that was more aligned with their recovery path than our own. And so we want to make sure that we're honoring the individual rights of those individuals. 6, protect the privacy and personal rights of each resident. 7, provide consistent and uniformly applied rules. 8, provide for the health, safety, and welfare of each resident. 9, address each resident fairly in all situations. 10, encourage residents to sustain relationships with professionals, recovery support service providers, and allies. 11, take appropriate action to stop intimidation, bullying, sexual harassment, and or otherwise threatened behavior of residents, staff, and visitors within the residence. Excuse me. And 12, take appropriate action to stop retribution, intimidation. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is different. Take appropriate action to stop retribution, intimidation, or any negative consequences that can recur as a result of a grievance or a complaint. So residents have the right to file grievances. They have the right to file complaints. and we're not going to take action against them for doing so, even if they're wrong. 13, provide consistent, fair practices for drug testing that promote the resident's recovery and the health and safety of the recovery environment and protect the privacy of resident information. Provide an environment in which each resident's needs are the primary factors in all decision making. And then, 15, promote the residents with marketing and advertising that is supported by accurate, open, and honest claims. Decline taking a primary role in the recovery plans of relatives, close friends, and or business acquaintances. So those individuals should be referred out. You have a dual relationship with them. That's too many hats, and it becomes a complicated, messy situation for someone in recovery. You treat them differently than other residents, and so we really should not be taking in our friends and our family members. We should be referring them out to other homes. 16, we're going to decline. 17, sustain transparency in operational and financial decisions. 18, maintain clear personal and professional boundaries. 19, operate within the resident's scope of service and within professional training and credentials. 19, operate within the it's repetitive on my screen. 20, maintain an environment that promotes the peace and safety of the surrounding neighborhood and community at large. So the importance of ethical behavior in peer support staff is trust and integrity. Ethical behavior in peer support staff is crucial for establishing and maintaining trust with residents and recovery residences. It demonstrates integrity and reliability, laying the foundation for a supportive and honest relationship. Professional reputation. Ethical behavior contributes to the positive reputation of the recovery residents in the program in its entirety. And the peer support staff. It reflects professionalism and a commitment to uphold the highest ethical standards in the field of recovery support. And so what you do can affect the entire program and everyone that works there as well. Residents' well-being. Oh my God. Adhering to ethical standards ensures that the focus remains on the well-being of residents. It promotes a safe and empowering environment where individuals can feel respected and supported in their recovery journey. And the impact on the community. The ethical conduct of peer support staff has a ripple effect on the broader recovery community. It sets the standard for ethical behavior and fosters a culture of accountability and responsibility within the community. Remember, you are the role model. You are taking and filling those shoes. And so if you are doing things unethical, the entire community that you're living in and supporting may begin to mirror those images and those behaviors that they see. You want to be the model of how to do things the right way. Ethical values for peer support staff. So respect. Peer support staff should demonstrate respect for the autonomy and choices of individuals in recovery, acknowledging their inherent worth and dignity. Empowerment. Encouraging and supporting residents in making informed decisions about their recovery journey, fostering a sense of empowerment and self-efficiency. Integrity. Upholding honesty, transparency, and accountability in interactions with residents and colleagues and promoting trust within the recovery community. And non-judgment. Cultivating a non-judgmental approach free from bias and prejudice to create a safe and inclusive environment for all the residents. So what is the ethical decision-making process? So first, we need to sit back and evaluate the situation. We're ever in an ethical conflict with ourselves on what we're doing, what we should do, how we should handle a situation. So first, we need to evaluate it. Before making any decisions, the peer support staff, we need to thoroughly evaluate the situation. This involves gathering all the relevant information, considering all the perspectives of involved parties, and understanding the potential impact for various courses of action on the residents and the overall recovery environment. So what happened? What is the different perspective? What does it look like from someone else's view? And if I take this route, how is this going to play out? If I take this route, how is this going to play out? What is it going to look like? Really evaluating the situation. Exploring alternatives. Once the situation is fully understood, peer support staff should explore a range of alternatives. This may involve brainstorming, seeking input from colleagues, and considering the ethical implications of each alternative. It's essential to think creatively and carefully about available choices. And then you need to make a decision. After evaluating the situation and exploring alternatives, peer support staff must make a well-informed decision. This decision should be based on ethical principles and well-being and autonomy of the residents and the overall mission of the recovery residents. It's important to document the rationale behind the decision and be prepared to justify it as necessary. And this is something that you're probably going to be working with your supervisors, owner operators. If there is some weird situation that comes up, you're going to want to get the feedback from everybody that's involved and everyone that you're going to need to report to before making a decision that could really impact someone's life. So common ethical dilemmas in recovery residences, confidentiality breaches. This happens a lot. Why we spend a little bit of time on different scenarios and what needs to be maintained confidential and what can be released. And so one of the common ethical dilemmas in recovery residences is the challenge of maintaining the confidentiality of residents. Peer support staff have access to sensitive information about the individuals they support, and there may be instances where they feel pressured to disclose this information to others. This dilemma arises when staff members balance the need to protect residents' privacy with their duty to report potential harm or safety concerns. Personal relationships with residents. Another ethical challenge for peer support staff involves developing personal relationships with residents. While it's important to build rapport and trust, there is a fine line between maintaining professional boundaries and becoming too emotionally invested in resident lives. Staff members must grapple with the dilemma of being empathetic and supportive while avoiding potential harm that can arise from blurred boundaries. This is hard when you're talking about being a peer and also living with them, being one of them, being their brother or sister, being their friend, and also having this role where you have a positive or negative impact on the individual's life in their recovery journey. And then conflict of interest. In recovery residences, peer support staff may encounter ethical dilemmas related to conflicts of interest that can occur when staff members have personal connections or financial interests that could potentially interfere with their ability to provide unbiased and objective support to residents. Managing this dilemma requires transparency with yourself and others, self-awareness, and a commitment to prioritizing residents' best interests above all else. So it's one thing to collect resident rent or fees or anything like that, but becoming financially invested with a resident or their financial dealings outside of those things is a conflict of interest that you want to stay out of. Cultural competence and diversity in recovery residences. So recovery residents they're diverse environments, often accommodating individuals from various cultural backgrounds, ethnicities, and belief systems. And it's crucial for peer support staff to demonstrate cultural competence, which involves the ability to understand, respect, and effectively work with individuals from diverse cultures. Cultural competence goes beyond mere tolerance. It requires an active effort to learn about different cultures, communicate respectively, and adapt support services to meet the unique needs of each individual. Peer support staff should strive to create an inclusive and welcoming environment where individuals from all backgrounds feel valued and understood. This entails promoting diversity and embracing the richness of each culture brings to the recovery community. Emphasizing cultural competence not only enhances the effectiveness of support services, but also fosters a sense of belonging and acceptance among residents, contributing to their overall wellness and the recovery journey. And then furthermore, cultural competence extends to understanding the impact of systemic inequalities of social determinants of health in individuals from marginalized communities. It involves advocating for equitable access to resources, addressing disparities, and actively challenging any discriminatory practices within the recovery residence setting. Embracing diversity and promoting cultural competence not only aligns with ethical principles, but also enriches the community, promoting a more holistic approach to recovery.